Most people think learning English is about memorizing grammar rules, mastering vocabulary lists, and speaking with a flawless accent. They believe that if they can just say every sentence correctly, they'll be respected, accepted, and successful. But the truth is far more powerful and also far more freeing. Learning English isn't first a language problem, it's a mindset problem. English is energy, it's expression, it's vibration, it's intention. When you speak, you are not just saying words, you are transmitting your beliefs, your thoughts, your self-worth. So when people say they're struggling with English, they're usually not struggling with English itself. They're struggling with how they feel about speaking English, that feeling of fear, of what if I mess up, of what if they laugh at me. That's what's holding people back, not the words, not the grammar, but the energy behind the words. Children speak imperfectly and no one cares. Tourists speak broken English around the world and they still connect, travel, and do business. So why do so many people freeze when they have to say something in English? It's because they think the sentence is more important than the speaker. But the truth is the opposite. You are more important than your grammar. The energy you speak with is louder than your accent. The confidence you express is more powerful than your vocabulary. Learning English is not about being perfect, it's about being present, about showing up with belief. You don't need to have a PhD level vocabulary to inspire people. You don't need to know every verb tense to deliver your ideas. What you need is faith in your ability to connect. That's what language is for: connection, not perfection. When you focus only on correctness, you shrink. You hesitate, you second, guess, and when you do that, you interrupt the natural flow of expression. That creates anxiety, and anxiety blocks your learning ability. Your brain can't grow when it's in fear. Your heart can't express when it's in doubt. So learning English starts with a decision, not to be fluent, but to be fearless. That's the real switch. That's the starting point. Once you stop judging yourself, once you start focusing on what you want to express instead of what you want to avoid, the energy begins to shift. Your voice changes, your attitude changes, your memory improves, and most importantly, you become more alive, more open, more receptive. Speaking is energy, not perfection. Think about the most powerful speakers in the world. Many of them don't speak perfect English. They don't sound like native speakers. Some have heavy accents, but you listen to them, you feel them. Why? Because they have belief. Because they know what they're saying matters. They believe it. And belief transfers through tone, through presence, through the vibration behind the sentence. That's what makes someone compelling. That's what makes someone listen. When you speak English, if your belief is "I am not good enough," then your energy will reflect that and people will feel it. But if your belief is "I have something to say," "I am learning every day," "I am growing," then your energy shifts, and that shift is what makes all the difference. You don't need to wait until your English is perfect to be powerful. That's the biggest lie people tell themselves. They say, once my English is fluent, I'll apply for that job. Once I'm confident, I'll start that YouTube channel. Once I stop making mistakes, I'll speak up in meetings. But here's the truth. The only way to become fluent is to stop waiting. You grow by doing. You build confidence by showing up. The fear you feel right now is a signal that you're about to step into growth. And if you listen to that signal and move anyway, you will learn faster than any textbook could ever teach you. Learning English is not about speaking with your mouth first. It's about speaking with your mind, the internal dialogue you have, the story you tell yourself. That is your real English lesson. Every time you say, "I'm not ready," you reinforce hesitation. Every time you say, "I'm improving," You invite expansion, so start by changing the story. Say, I am a communicator. I'm learning to express myself with clarity. I'm developing a skill, and every mistake is a step forward. Speak this story to yourself daily. Because when the belief changes, the behavior changes, and when the behavior changes, the result changes. Language learning becomes easier. You find yourself remembering words you didn't study. You find yourself understanding accents that used to scare you. You find yourself saying things without thinking. And that's when you know your energy has aligned with the language. That's the goal, not perfection, connection. And that connection begins with your belief, your intention, and your inner power. Most people believe that learning English is about finding the right course, using the right app, or memorizing a long list of grammar rules and vocabulary words. But the real struggle doesn't start with books or pronunciation. It starts inside your own mind. The truth is, the greatest obstacle in learning English is not the language itself. It's the voice in your head that keeps repeating the same negative messages. It's the fear, the self-doubt, and the internal resistance that slows you down, holds you back, and convinces you that you're not good enough, not smart enough, or not capable of learning. That voice whispers things like, I'll never be fluent, I'm too old to learn, or people will laugh at me if I make a mistake. And the more you listen to that voice, the more power it gains. That voice becomes your inner enemy. It doesn't matter how many hours you study or how hard you try. If your internal dialogue is filled with doubt and negativity, your progress will always feel slow and difficult. That voice is subtle but powerful. It shows up when you're about to speak and suddenly feel nervous. It shows up when you want to join a conversation but decide to stay quiet. It shows up when you listen to a native speaker and immediately think, I can't do that. It shows up every time you compare yourself to someone else and feel like you're falling behind. This isn't just a language issue. This is a mindset issue. And the only way to grow past it is to confront that inner dialogue directly and rewrite the script that plays in your head. Learning English, or anything new, requires emotional strength. It's not just about remembering words. It's about handling your emotions while learning. Most people underestimate how emotional learning a language can be. There's embarrassment, frustration, confusion, and even shame sometimes. These emotions don't come from the language. They come from how you perceive yourself when you're learning. If you think making mistakes means you're stupid or failing, every time you make a mistake, you'll feel pain. And if learning equals pain, your brain will start to avoid learning. That's how people quit. They're not lazy. They're overwhelmed by emotions they haven't learned to deal with. The key is awareness. You must become aware of what you're saying to yourself on a daily basis. Are you encouraging yourself or criticizing yourself? Are you saying, I'm getting better every day, or this is too hard for me? Your words shape your world. Your inner language shapes your outer language. If you speak defeat to yourself, you will speak hesitation to the world. But if you speak faith to yourself, you will start to speak English with more courage, more flow, more energy. You must learn to separate the emotion from the event. Making a mistake doesn't mean you're a failure. Forgetting a word doesn't mean you're stupid. These are neutral events, but the emotion you attach to them gives them meaning. So how do you change that inner voice? You must start by listening to it. Become aware of how often you criticize yourself when you try to speak English. Notice how often you think, they won't understand me, or I'll mess this up. Catch yourself in the act of negative thinking. Then challenge it. Replace it. Say to yourself, even if I make a mistake, I'm still learning. Or every time I try, I improve. These aren't just motivational phrases. They are rewiring your brain. Because every thought you repeat becomes a belief, and every belief shapes your actions. That's how you create a new mindset. That's how you build confidence from the inside out. Another major problem is comparison. People look at fluent speakers and feel discouraged. They think, they're so good, I'll never be like that. But comparison is a trap. You don't see the thousands of hours that person put into learning. You don't see their past mistakes, their struggles, their doubts. You only see the result, and then use it as a reason to judge yourself. That's unfair. You're comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. The only person you need to compare yourself with is who you were yesterday. Did you learn one new word? Did you try to speak even if it felt uncomfortable? That's progress, that's winning. Focus on small victories, not perfection. The fear of judgment is another part of the inner voice that keeps people stuck. You worry about what others will think if you mispronounce something. You worry about looking foolish, but the truth is, people don't care as much as you think. Most people are too busy worrying about themselves to be analyzing you. And even if someone laughs or judges, that's about them, not you. Their reaction doesn't define your ability. You're on your journey, and your journey is sacred. Don't let the fear of someone else's opinion become the jail that traps your voice. Speak anyway, try anyway, fail anyway, because each time you do, you are growing stronger than the fear. The final and most powerful shift is to recognize that your thoughts are not facts. Just because your mind says you can't, doesn't mean it's true. Your mind is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used well or poorly. Most people let their mind run on autopilot, but to master English, you must master your inner world. Direct your thoughts. Create a new script. Remind yourself every day that you are capable, worthy, and improving. When you change your self-image, you change your results. English is not the problem, the voice in your head is, and once you silence that voice, or better, transform it, you'll find the language flows more easily than you ever imagined. Repetition is not boring. It is the foundation of mastery. It is the invisible force that rewires your mind, shapes your habits, and transforms what once felt difficult into something that becomes second nature. When it comes to learning English, people often underestimate the power of doing the same thing over and over with purpose and energy. They want something new every day, a new technique, a new app, a new shortcut. But the truth is, what builds fluency is not how much variety you have, it's how often you repeat what truly matters. Repetition is what turns knowledge into instinct, and instinct is what you rely on when you're in real situations, when you're speaking without thinking, when you're understanding without translating. Most people approach English like an event instead of a process. They study for a few days, feel excited, and then stop because they don't see instant results. They think they need motivation to continue. But repetition doesn't rely on motivation. It builds momentum. It's not about feeling excited every day, it's about showing up anyway. Because every time you listen to English, speak it out loud, read something new, or review what you already know, you're not just learning words. You're programming your mind, you're installing a new language into your subconscious, and your subconscious learns not through logic, but through repetition. Think about how you learned your native language. You didn't study grammar rules or memorize vocabulary from a list. You heard the same words, phrases, and sentences again and again in your environment. You repeated what you heard without fear, without judgment, and slowly your mind adapted. It absorbed the patterns, the rhythm, the structure, and eventually it all clicked. That's the same process required to learn English now. But as an adult, you have to create that repetition intentionally. You must build a daily ritual around English. That ritual is your secret weapon. It's not about studying for 5 hours once a week. It's about touching the language every single day, even for just 30 minutes. Because when something becomes daily, it becomes part of who you are. Repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity kills fear. When you're exposed to English regularly, your brain begins to accept it as something natural, not foreign. Your mind stops resisting it. The phrases stop sounding strange, the grammar stops confusing you, and little by little your confidence grows. Not because you became perfect, but because the fear lost its power. Fear feeds on the unknown, and repetition makes the unknown known. That's why you must listen to the same podcast multiple times. Repeat the same sentence until it feels natural. Read the same paragraph out loud until your tongue flows through the words. It's not wasting time. It's training your brain. The mistake most learners make is chasing quantity over depth. They think learning 10 new words every day is better than mastering 5. But those 10 words will fade if you don't review them, use them, speak them. Repetition is what moves knowledge from short-term memory to long-term habit. When you repeat, you internalize, and internalization is what makes language usable. It's not enough to recognize a word. You need to be able to use it in real conversation without hesitation. That only happens through spaced repetition, review, recall, reuse again and again. But repetition isn't just mechanical, it's also emotional. When you repeat something, you send a message to your subconscious that says, "This is important," and your mind listens. Your brain prioritizes what you do consistently. If you scroll social media every morning, your brain says, "This is valuable." If you listen to English every morning, your brain says, "This is part of my identity." So repetition is more than practice. It's identity shaping. Every time you sit down to repeat a lesson, review a phrase, or rewatch a video, you are becoming the person who speaks English. Not trying, not hoping, becoming. It's also important to make repetition active. Passive repetition, like watching videos with subtitles but not speaking, can help, but it's not enough. You need to engage with what you're repeating. Read out loud. Pause and repeat what you hear. Write it down. Use it in a sentence. Test yourself. Repetition without attention is noise, but repetition with attention becomes transformation. The more senses you involve, seeing, hearing, speaking, writing, the deeper the imprint on your mind. Repetition also creates rhythm, and rhythm is what makes language feel natural. Just like a musician practices the same scales over and over until their fingers move without thought, you must practice the rhythm of English until it flows from your tongue. At first, it may sound robotic, awkward, or forced, but with repetition it smooths out. Your mouth learns, your ears sharpen, your brain adapts. That rhythm becomes your new normal. When you repeat the right things with the right energy, everything changes. It's not about cramming more. It's about returning to what matters again and again until it becomes a part of you. That's how real fluency is built, not in moments of sudden breakthrough, but in the quiet, consistent, sometimes boring act of repetition. The kind of repetition that doesn't just teach you English, but transforms how you think, feel, and express yourself in it. Environment is more powerful than willpower, and this is especially true when it comes to learning English. You can have the best goals, the strongest desire, and even the right tools, but if you're surrounded by a weak environment, an environment that doesn't support your growth, you will struggle unnecessarily. People often rely too much on motivation. They think if they're just disciplined enough, they can push through anything. But the truth is, discipline fades, motivation runs out, and willpower is limited. Your environment, on the other hand, works silently and continuously. It shapes your thoughts, your energy, and your focus without you even realizing it. The music you hear, the conversations around you, the language on your phone, the people you interact with, all of these are sending signals to your brain every day, telling it what is normal, what is possible, and what deserves your attention. When you build an English environment, you stop learning the language and start living it. That shift is where real transformation happens. You no longer feel like English is something separate from you. Instead, it becomes part of your daily experience. That doesn't mean you have to move to an English-speaking country. It means you create a world around you where English is constantly present. Change your phone settings to English. Watch YouTube in English. Follow English speakers on social media. Listen to English podcasts while you walk. Read short articles or books every day. Speak to yourself in English. Think in English when you're alone. These small actions may seem simple, but over time, they create a powerful atmosphere where English becomes familiar, not foreign. What makes this so powerful is how it programs your subconscious. Your mind is always adapting to its surroundings. If your environment is filled with your native language all the time, your brain will continue to prioritize it. But if you start to feed it English over and over, it starts to accept English as something important. Your brain says, "This is part of our world now," and it begins to work with you instead of against you. That's when you notice something incredible. You start understanding without translating. You start thinking in English automatically, and words come to you more easily. It's not magic, it's exposure. It's the result of shaping your environment to support your goals. People often underestimate how much their surroundings affect their energy. If you're trying to learn English but you're surrounded by people who make fun of your mistakes, doubt your abilities, or just don't care about growth, your progress will slow down. It doesn't matter how talented you are. If the people around you are negative, your belief system will take a hit. That's why you need to be intentional about who you listen to and spend time with. If your real life environment is unsupportive, build a digital one. Find a podcast host who inspires you. Follow an English teacher online whose voice you enjoy. Join an English speaking community on social media. Surround yourself with people, even virtually, who speak the way you want to speak and think the way you want to think. Let their mindset rub off on you. There's a reason why some people learn faster than others. It's not because they're smarter. It's because they live inside an environment that reinforces their goals. It's all around them. They wake up and hear English. They read English without forcing it. They talk to friends who use English casually. It's just part of life. You can create that for yourself. You don't have to force learning when you're immersed in it. Learning becomes effortless when it's everywhere. The songs you hum, the memes you laugh at, the jokes you share, the videos you binge watch. When all of that is in English, your brain gets used to it like background music. It becomes comfortable with the sounds, the rhythm, the flow. Your environment also influences your identity. When everything around you reminds you that you're a learner, a speaker, a communicator, you start to act in alignment with that. But if your environment reminds you of your past, your limitations, your old beliefs, then you keep falling back into that old identity. That's why changing your environment is not just a strategy, it's a necessity. It protects your mind from falling back into doubt. It gives you new evidence every day that you are capable, that English is accessible, that growth is happening even when you don't feel it. You become what you see. You absorb what you hear. Your surroundings are always teaching you something. Either they teach you to grow or they teach you to stay the same. Many people try to force learning into a life that isn't designed for it. They study English for 1 hour, but then spend the rest of the day consuming content in their native language, talking to people who don't support their goals, and living in a space that doesn't inspire them. That creates a constant inner conflict, but when you shift your environment, learning becomes natural. It becomes something you move through, something you breathe. You no longer feel like a student forcing yourself to study. You feel like a person who lives in two languages, who flows between worlds. You become the kind of person who doesn't just speak English. You are English in the way you think, act, and express. Emotion is one of the most underestimated forces in the entire learning process, especially when it comes to something as vulnerable and personal as learning a language like English. People assume learning is just a mechanical task: read, memorize, repeat. But in reality, every time you sit down to study, your emotions are either pushing you forward or silently pulling you backward. When you feel confident, even a difficult lesson feels manageable. But when you feel ashamed, frustrated, or afraid, even a simple exercise feels heavy. That emotional weight becomes a wall, and most learners don't realize that wall is built not from grammar rules or vocabulary gaps, but from how they feel about themselves while learning. Learning English isn't just about skill, it's about emotional resilience. Every word you say, every sentence you struggle to form, is wrapped in emotion, whether you notice it or not. Most people feel their negative emotions and think they're a sign to stop. They feel anxious and assume they're not ready. They feel embarrassed after making a mistake and conclude they're not smart enough. But the truth is, those emotions aren't signs to stop. They're signs that you're on the edge of growth. That moment of discomfort is where change begins. When you feel nervous before speaking English, that's your mind stepping outside its comfort zone. When you feel awkward using new vocabulary, that's your brain building new pathways. Emotion is feedback. It tells you where you are and what you're ready to transform. But instead of interpreting those feelings as growth signals, most people take them as warnings and they retreat, they go silent, they avoid. And they slow their progress without even realizing it. To truly grow, you have to stop running from negative emotions and start using them. Anger, frustration, doubt, fear. These can all be fuel if you learn how to convert them. If you feel embarrassed after mispronouncing something, instead of shrinking, decide to say it again. Say it louder. Say it better. Let the mistake burn into your memory, not as a failure, but as a breakthrough. If you feel like giving up because something is too hard, take a breath and ask yourself why you started. Tap into the emotion that pushed you to want to learn in the first place, the hunger to grow, the desire to connect, the dream that made you open that book or play that audio. That emotion is still inside you, and when you reconnect to it, you unlock a deeper power that makes grammar rules and pronunciation drills feel light. You also have to understand that emotions don't come out of nowhere. They are built from thoughts. What you think repeatedly creates what you feel repeatedly. If you keep thinking, "I'll never speak well," you will constantly feel doubt, and that doubt will drain your energy, no matter how many hours you study. But if you feed yourself a new thought, a new belief, like "every word I say makes me stronger," or "I'm becoming more fluent every day," your emotions will begin to shift. That's not just motivational talk, that's neuroscience. Your brain listens to what you tell it, and your emotional state reflects the story you repeat. So if you want to feel more confident in English, stop waiting for confidence to magically appear. Start telling a better story. Start feeding your emotions with better fuel. Start choosing thoughts that build you up, not break you down. The emotional journey of learning English is full of ups and downs. One day you'll feel excited because you understood a podcast. The next day you'll feel defeated because you couldn't respond fast enough in a conversation. This is normal. It's part of the emotional cycle. But you have to remember, emotions are temporary, but your progress is permanent. Just because today feels difficult doesn't mean you're failing. Just because you feel stuck doesn't mean you are stuck. The key is to keep going even when your emotions try to pull you back. Keep learning when you don't feel like it. Keep speaking when your voice shakes. Keep showing up for yourself, especially when it's uncomfortable. That's how emotional power is built. Not by avoiding the hard moments, but by walking through them and realizing they can't break you. When you build emotional strength, you begin to enjoy the process more. You stop seeing mistakes as threats. You start seeing them as part of the game. You laugh more, you relax, you take risks, and that energy, playful, open, bold, is exactly what accelerates learning. Children learn faster because they don't carry the emotional baggage adults do. They make mistakes and move on. Adults, on the other hand, attach meaning to everything. I made a mistake, so I must be stupid. I forgot a word, so I'm not improving. These emotional conclusions are far more damaging than the actual mistakes. You have to unlearn that habit. You have to become emotionally lighter, even as you go deeper in your learning. That's how you free your voice. That's how you unlock fluency, not just with your mouth, but with your mind and your heart. Emotion is energy, and energy is what drives progress. If your energy is heavy with fear and shame, you will drag through every lesson. But if your energy is lifted with belief and curiosity, you will absorb everything faster. You will retain more. You will perform better. That's why it's not enough to just ask, "What am I learning?" You also have to ask, "How do I feel while learning?" Because that feeling is the real teacher. It either opens your mind or shuts it down. It either invites growth or resists it. And once you understand how to manage, shape, and direct that emotional energy, you no longer need to fight yourself every step of the way. You become aligned, you feel light, and in that state, learning stops being a burden and becomes a source of joy, power, and self-expression.